on this budget. Have you? I know it's a hard thing to do because when you accept these grants, you also accept transparency in what you do. So I understand that these budgets are very complicated, but I also understand that if there is a tax hike aligned with this, the money is going to come out of the teachers' pockets, and the teachers that are currently already paying for expo markers are going to have less money to supplement the teaching and learning in the class. So I'm wondering, I truly am wondering, because these budgets are complicated and not everybody has a background in finance and economics. Do you understand where all of the money has gone? Have you actually looked into ways to offset these expenses through grants? If you haven't, with all due respect, you're not doing your job. You need to make sure that that's happening. Otherwise, the money is going to come out of the teachers' pockets because the teachers, it's a calling for them. Just like it's a calling for you, it's a calling for me. We will supplement what we don't have in order to ensure good teaching and learning for the students. I'm begging you to reject any excess to the R&R rate. Unless you can ensure that everything that, well, and not even any, I'm gonna back away from that because I'm positive that there are ways in order to get there without raising the rate and not compromising the teaching and learning. Pedagogy is too important. Again, my name is Jim Long. I'm a resident. I care about the teaching and learning because I receive the students and I have to carry them on from where you've handed them off to me. And it's so important. But I do not think that this rate increase is going to help us at all ensure that our students master those important curricular issues. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Well, the question you asked that you didn't want to answer to, can I have it, do we know the answer? So the question you asked,
About the grants, ensuring that you fully.
I'm just, yeah.
Yeah, I would like that as well because that is, it's tough because honestly, everybody here has a full-time job and nobody wants to take on that role of grant researcher and grant writer as well. But ensuring that we actually do that is a good way to protect that take-home pay to our teachers. And we all care about that. So have we done that? They're out there. There's so many grants out there. I hate to say it, but don't take them for granted. Sorry, I just can't not say that. I'm happy, as somebody who's a citizen, I'm happy to help. I'm happy to help you with grant research, grant writing, if it's gonna save us money. But unless we know the answer to that question, we cannot, in good faith, ask our teachers to take less money home. We just can't do it.
Thanks for coming, sir.
Discuss this.
Okay, thank you.
We discussed
Anybody
this.
else?
Anybody else wants to? Go ahead, sir.
What?
Good evening, good to see y'all. Thanks for the job you do in supporting our community. I certainly appreciate it. I've got a lot of grandkids that are in the school and that are benefiting from the education. But what I'd like to talk about is who I am and why I think we have an issue, a serious issue within the community. I'm obviously a senior citizen. I'm retired. I've been retired for quite a while. So I'm basically living on a fixed income. You know, I'm one of the baby boomers, all right? So there's a lot of us out there. There's a lot of aging members in our community that are finding it harder and harder to exist with the increased prices, increased inflation, and oh yeah, don't forget increased taxes. And I realize that the property taxes pay the salaries of the teachers and the people that support our school system. But it's almost like enough is enough. I passed out a graph to y'all. You should have this, or if you don't have, I'd be glad to give you another copy of it. This is put out by an organization called Kansas Open Government. Can y'all hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Okay, so you can go to their website. It's referenced on the bottom. All this is public information, public knowledge. This is something you can access, so this is bona fide, the result of their research information. So, a couple things are interesting here. One is, if you look at the very bottom line, that's population. Our population is not increasing, and it hasn't been since about 2000. So that basically means the people that are left are gonna have to shoulder the entire tax burden, all right? The other thing is the top line, which is property taxes. You can see how they've risen. You can see a drop around 2011. So the casino came online in December of 2011. We initially saw a really good benefit from reducing our property taxes. I think a lot of you were aware of the hype at the time. Oh yeah, it's the answer to our prayers. This is gonna be the thing that holds down property taxes and makes life so much better for all of us. Well, you can also see that over time, we have increased property taxes regardless to where it's like a casino never happened, okay? So we're increasing our property taxes at well over twice the rate of inflation. And it kind of reminds me of the quote of Margaret Thatcher: the problem with socialism is sooner or later you run out of other people's money. Well, I think we're really looking at running out of the money that a lot of us have to support our community. Okay, so I really feel like we have enough money. We don't have a property tax problem, we've got a spending problem. Okay, the other thing I'd like to point out is our property taxes, the macro look does not increase because our property values increase. Everybody aware of that? If in fact our elected officials didn't vote to spend more money, we would not pay more property taxes as a community. Everybody's mad at the appraiser's office, but that all gets down to an argument about whether they or their neighbors are gonna shoulder a bigger or less portion of the property tax levy, okay? The reason our taxes go up, the only reason they go up, is that our elected officials, such as yourself, such as our county commissioners, such as our city council members, vote to increase their budgets and spend, more money. And this isn't just a problem for myself, like one of the aging members of our community. There's a lot of younger families, members that are struggling, trying to pay the bills, put food on the table, deal with other excess of inflation. Okay? And as I pointed out, our population has been decreasing, not increasing. I'm sure we'd like to see that happen the other way. But I'm a private enterprise guy. I didn't work for government or, academia or any, I spent my career in the aerospace industry. And by the way, I have, if you care, I have a degree in aeronautical engineering from WSU. I'm a licensed Kansas professional engineer. I worked in the industry for a very long time. Okay, so I'm well acquainted with the private enterprise aspect of it. I think that's really the engine that provides the impetus to fuel our economy. Something else I might mention, I touched on the casino and how that really doesn't appear to have done anything for us over time. The situation's even worse because they've been protesting their property taxes every year since they've been in existence. And very, very recently, they've gotten favorable rulings from BoE, the Board of Tax Appeals at the state level, to the point where Sumner County, which is us, is having to pay them back, or had to pay them back, $3.8 million in what we overcharge them for property taxes. So that's a levy of about $1 million a year to be paid back over 4 years, that we, the people, our property taxes have to support that as well as everything else. And oh, by the way, there are a lot of other pending protests on the part of the Kansas Star Casino. So it's like the message just gets better and better. But anyway, I would really encourage you to take a hard look, think about what you're doing. This is in fact what you're doing to our community, or at least as elected officials, you're helping do to our community. Okay, drive up our property taxes to what, I think is an unacceptable level. I really think we don't have a tax problem as much as a spending problem. Okay? Anybody have any comments or questions or?
Appreciate your commentary.
I am really sincere, you have to take a hard look that we have a spending problem. But yeah, thanks, Jason. All right.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else wanted to speak this evening?
So that's the only thing on the agenda tonight, so. That is our only action item. Any comments from the board? Concerns?
I didn't be, did we talk about this last month?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't last month, it was the
Special
Couple
meeting.
weeks ago.
Yeah,
special meeting.
28th, August 28th.
That's when our accountant met on the phone.
That's when we published it,
I just,
when we had the accountant on the phone, answer our questions. No questions from the board? Comments? The one thing I guess I'll mention is, I mentioned this during the last meeting, before we went to publication. Last year's mill levy for the school district was 26.989. The proposed mill levy for this year is 25.564. So the mill levy is going down, as many of the people have mentioned tonight, with evaluations changing and appraisals changing and stuff like that. The revenue neutral rate, as mentioned tonight, would be a little bit lower than that. It would be 24.701. So just so that everybody out there watching understands what we're talking about here.
so the 24.01 higher or lower?
The 24.701 would be the net revenue neutral rate. So that would be roughly 2 mils less than what it was last year.
So
Yes, sir.
what does that translate to in terms of a property tax increase? The mill levy is just
Sure.
the fallout of,
Sure.
working the equation, but as far as property taxes,
So
how
rough
much are you
numbers,
increasing?
looking here, looks like around $71,000 annually,
Yes.
roughly.
Percentage wise?
71,000 annually to our budget is what the difference is. So the grand scheme of things, that's pretty small in our budget.
Can you quote a number for increase?
For increase on what?
Percentage of property tax increase that
I
you're
don't
levying.
have that number off the top of my
If you
head.
take
Terry.
if you took the 2,015,000 divided by the 2,086,000, that would give you a percentage, right?
Sure. I'm just looking at the numbers that were published, Terry. is all I'm
Yeah.
looking at.
Yeah, I understand.
4%, is that correct? Because you're the numbers with 3%, right?
Yeah.
3%.
But
So
by
it's a,
the way, that doesn't sound that bad to me. It's probably in line with the rate of inflation increase.
3% inflation.
And given the fact that property tax has been going up well over twice the rate of inflation increase, you all are probably doing very well, just personal opinion.
I think what Jason's saying is we're looking at a 70,000 total increase for the school's budget,
Yeah.
or tax, not say budgets, tax income.
Okay.
Um, You said 24.701 is lower than last year.
That would be the revenue neutral rate. So if we voted not to exceed, that's what we would be at. Correct. That would generate the same dollar amount as we generated last year. So, no more comments. I would, we need a motion on that, right, Adam?
Yes.
On the revenue neutral rate.
Well, I guess I'll be the bad person here, and I'll make a motion to vote to exceed the revenue neutral rate.
Tom, can you also mention that the rec center
Yeah.
stayed revenue neutral? That's part of the
Oh,
motion.
and the rec center did stay revenue neutral.
Yes, just because that's tied into it, but
Yep.
thank you.
And as mentioned, by one of the participants, the rec center did vote to stay neutral. And they had came to us before, and we'd taken action to allow them to go up if they needed to. They didn't, so that's why we got that in there, because it's kind of tied to our budget too. So, just to kind of clean things up. Okay, I got a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Got a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Let's do a roll call vote.
Roll call vote.
Thank you, Russ.
Chris Buckman,
No.
Brandon Earl,
Yes.
Andrea Kreifels,
Yes.
Jason Newberry,
Yes.
Deanna Garver,
No.
Tom Henning,
Yes.
Pat Zika.
No,
4-3. That is the only thing on our agenda, so we are adjourned with that agenda and moving to the next meeting here shortly. Actually, I guess we're already to the time, right?
Yes, yeah, I think we can start past 6:10.
Hold on, let me get the next agenda here.
Yep, we're good.
I lose.
Okay, so the next meeting is for the budget. No, I'm on the wrong one
Yes,
again.
yeah, you're on.
Yeah, I'm on
You're
the
right.
budget.
Budget.
Sorry,
Yep.
too many agendas open.
I can't do it.
Go ahead and call this meeting to order, and let's do another roll call, Russ.
Chris Buckman,
Here.
Brandon Earl,
Here.
Andrea Kreifels,
Here.
Jason Newberry,
Here.
Deanna Garver,
Here.
Tom Henning,
Here.
Pat Zika.
Okay, adoption of the agenda is the next thing.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented to us.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same. Recognition of patrons?
Nobody formal,
called?
but it's a hearing as the
absolutely.
last meeting.
Absolutely. Okay, and the only thing on our action items is the budget hearing. Adam, you wanna kind of kick us off?
Sure. So same meeting a couple weeks ago, met with our accountant, Randy Ford, who's worked with the district for a number of years. Presented the budget that he and Darcy worked together on to produce for this year. And so the board approved that for publishing, and so for this evening, it is up for obviously anybody who wanted to speak in the hearing, and then up for action prior to that.
Does anybody wanna talk about the budget? Okay. Seeing none, any board discussion?
What bilingual education do we provide? Is that what it's for? But so we're buying new curriculum, so.
I think that's ESL. English is second language.
You said, say that again, I'm sorry, yeah.
Well, it's going up, so it went up almost $3,500. So I'm just like, do we buy something new for it, or why is it going up?
Everything goes up to give us the authority, and I think that's based off of, our second English, second language numbers?
Yes.
I believe that's based off of that.
So we have a teacher that provides that service for the district. And then, as stated with everything, with depending on what happens with negotiations within their salary, all those things, there's the accountant will always put a little extra money in there to make sure that we don't go over that amount. to keep the board from having to republish the budget.
I'm just curious, how many of those learners do we have that need English as a second language?
This year, I don't have that memorized, I can get that to you. Do we have that memorized?
I don't, and they're still coming in, so the ESL teacher's doing testing, and then those numbers will be, she sends them up to the state. So we have not completed all our testing, because we still have students moving in.
That's good. Who teaches that?
Chanel Angel,
Oh, Chanel?
yes. Yeah, she was at the middle school last year.
What about the professional development? It went from 39,000 to 133,000.
It would have been, once again, it would have been set up based off of expectations of spending this year. I know that,
That was letters.
a lot of it's probably the letters training, how that ended up from last year. So the expectation of letters training when they did the budget last year versus what actually happened last year, they would have probably increased that to pad for that being
And
higher.
So how did we pay for it last year? If it was supposed to be 70,000 and we only had 30,000, whatever.
See what you're. I
You're
think we're-
looking at the
You're,
actual,
what you're getting confused, where you're comparing actual, what we spent versus proposed. So we always have to plan on more. And then if we don't spend that much, we get, everybody's looking at this saying actual
Yeah.
versus
Okay, If we don't
proposed.
spend it, where does it go? And I'm big on all this stuff.
It just gives us the budget authority to spend up to that amount. I know
Can you spend it?
starting last
You
year,
can't spend it somewhere
the
else.
You
state
get that money,
also,
you don't get that money until you spend it.
the state also, I believe, brought back professional development as a reimbursement, and I'm not exactly sure, Jen, if you know more about what qualifies for reimbursement, but, so the state brought that back. In the previous years before I was here, they had dropped that piece,
Yeah.
and they are bringing it back to help with some of our professional development.
Like if you looked at the proposed budget from last year, it would look similar to the proposed budget this year. But then it's hard when you're comparing actual to proposed. Because like they said, if you don't have that many students needing the
You
ESL,
won't need that much.
you won't need
but
that
you
much
get
money,
more.
but we have to budget for needing that much.
Thank you. I should ask more questions last time.
That's fine. I'm kind of learning too, so.
It's all a stab at trying to keep the board from having to republish.
Yeah, like Darcy said, it's just kind of setting our budget authority. Doesn't mean that every dollar is gonna be spent that's there. It's just kind of setting a cap.
I think the food service is another good example, like proposed versus actual.
and also the capital outlay will be one that he would have wrote, we've spent everything, but we may not spend hardly
Yeah, he wants to
anything.
give us that authority to go ahead and
Right.
spend everything
Okay.
if we have something catastrophic happen. We don't run into an issue of having to republish.
Good questions. Anything else? Or comments or concerns?
I'll make a motion to approve the 2023-2024 school budget.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. Russ, let's do a roll call.
Chris Buckman,
No.
Brandon Earl,
Yes.
Andrea Kreifels,
Yes,
Jason Newberry,
Yes.
Deanna Garver,
Yes.
Tom Henning,
Yes.
Pat Zika.
Yes.
Okay, since that's the only thing on that agenda, we are adjourned on that meeting.
Gavel there.
Oh, sorry, Pat,
I like that.
make it official.
See if I can find it. August.
Okay, everybody make it to the right agenda for the next meeting?
I've only got all the right one.
Yeah, we're past the time, so we can go ahead and get rolling, it looks like, so. Gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order. There you go, Pat. Let's do a roll call.
Chris Buckman.
Here.
Brandon Earl.
Here.
Andrea Kreifels.
Here.
Jason Newberry.
Here.
Deanna Garver.
Here.
Tom Henning. Here. Pat Zika.
Adoption of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda that's been presented.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same. Recognition patrons and staff. Nobody signed up?
Nobody this evening.
Okay. First discussion item, WHS main gym scoreboard.
Yes, Ellie has been working with the Crusader Club on possible replacement of the scoreboards in the main gym at the high school. And so Ellie is here, and I believe Colby is here, and I gave them their packets already, so you're in good shape. And so I'll let them speak to you this evening.
I'm Colby Z.
Colby.
How's it going? You all had a chance to look at any of the packets?
Just briefly.
So, we, Crusader Club would like to donate money to, replace the current scoreboards with what you see here, these 2 video boards. And before I finish up my fundraising for that, or securing the funds, I need permission from you guys to go this route. And what do you all think?
So the Crusader Club's gonna do the whole deal, is that getting out of pocket from the school,
Almost.
almost good?
We need about 75,000 from y'all. Just kidding.
Okay.
No,
It's bad enough.
like, the school was, from my understanding, was planning to replace the current ones to move them into the auxiliary gym because the auxiliary gym scoreboards are very unreliable. And so I think there was maybe 15 or 16,000 that was already, I'm speaking kind of.
That would replace exactly what we have right now. So that's where I think it was 16.9 is what we.
So I'm asking for that money to still be put into this and then we'll cover the rest.
And if the proposal is 56,000, right?
No, the proposal is 56
That's part
plus
of it.
another 30. So it's about 86,000.
Okay, sorry, I didn't,
That's fine.
okay.
It's not like competing bids, it's like one is
One
part of, yeah, it's like the software
That's
controller.
correct, yeah.
Okay, that's where
Um,
I was getting confused. I was like,
We've done some research on different ideas and this is what we landed on. It's what we like. There's a $6,000 annual software subscription, yeah, that the school would have to pay for.
You don't have to do that, right?
Yeah, you have to do that.
It's the score vision of it. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so I was just signed through the lumberyard and we opted not to do that. Cause I could do it myself, but if you don't have the means to do that,
Yeah,
Well, I
it's
can
just
check
the-
on that.
Yeah,
pick up right on that, cause I think you can opt out of it if you don't wanna do that.
and do just the basic and do it yourself.
I think we want to, but because I think it's like in-game support, stuff like that, where you got trouble, I think you kind of need to do it. And also, I think it can easily be paid for by advertising money. And, let's see, like, the students can use these boards, the classes can use them for anything during the school year, during the day, for assemblies. They're like really just giant TVs. I mean, you can mirror them from iPads, from cell phones. You can do live highlights during a game. You can have a kid in a class taking highlights with their phone on the sideline and play the highlight immediately. Like, it's really some really cool stuff. Business classes can use it for fundraising, for advertising. Help me out here, Ellen.
No, you're good. Like when we talked about like especially that subscription, cause on your picture there, what that looks like on the second page is that's the subscription part of it. And that's kind of where the design comes in and that part's really cool. One of the things that we talked about is getting with our business classes and kind of teaching them to go out, maybe ask for, some advertisement money, that kind of stuff, which would then cover, to kind of give them those real world experiences that would cover that subscription every single year. One of the things I like about it as a former PE teacher myself is a PE teacher could use it every single day. They can put up like heart rate monitors. You can see where kids' zones are. Their names wouldn't be up there. They would be assigned to a number. And if they're put on like a heart rate monitor, you're gonna see, okay, I'm hitting my target zone, or I haven't done jack squat today, and I could say, you know, I can look it up there as compared to others. You can use it for class night, you can use it for, like you said, assemblies. If graduation ever has to go inside, you can create a video with, you know, the kids' graduation pictures, senior pictures. There's just a number of different things that we can use it for sure. Coaches can use it, they can send their phone, like he was saying, up to the screen. You can have, like, football can have their film session in there, and it's a big old screen that everyone can see just sitting on the floor or whatever, so.
It does look like the software, unfortunately, if we're using it just in the gym, it's $6,000 a year, but if you had more of these signs, it says it covers tennis, soccer, baseball, softball. So if like the football field ever got a sign that supported that wouldn't be an extra 6,000?
That would be a question for Brett. Brett Wright is the one who put this proposal. I would have to ask him that.
Okay.
I don't know if each board is a separate or if it's all under what we would buy.
Right.
I think, and I might be wrong in this because we did it, but you have one account and you can assign different boards. And then you just tap on the board you want what to play on, so you can flip flop it to different things. I'm almost positive 6,000 is that one fee that for all of the boards that you have.
I've got some links I can get to you all that are, you know, presentations and from the website that sells all this stuff, so I can get you that too.
You just need our permission to go forward.
Yeah, I really need at least a pretty decent idea that you guys are okay with it. If I come to you and say, I've got this much money, can I put those up?
So you just need a motion for the school and the Crusader Club to go in with the school.
Really, if I was on the board, I would say, I need your approval to use your 16 that you were gonna use anyway, and allow me to add to it and put up what you see here.
Okay, Chris just said that, so I second
Okay.
that motion.
I think you could just probably just accept a donation from the
Yeah,
Crusader.
I was gonna say, that's what I was gonna say.
Cause we can handle the district side.
We will accept, I make a motion that we will accept the donation from the Crusader Club for the scoreboard in the main gym.
Does it work?
I think so.
Knowing that we're gonna give
Yeah.
money towards it. Does that need to be in the motion or no?
I don't think so.
Okay.
It's under bid or
It's
anything
under-
like that.
Got a motion.
Can I get a second? Just kidding.
I'll second.
Got a second. Any discussion on it? Any other concerns? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same? Okay. See what we can do, Joel.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We have my basketball.
Pulled up last year's.
Yeah.
We actually did spend $10,000.
We should be able to get them up before
Which
this
is why
season.
we budgeted.
Okay, next item, discussion items is South Haven Wrestling Cooperative.
I don't know if I need to stand for this one.
It's just the.
No, you should be up there right next to me.
No, good.
Okay,
Like, why do I spend this much?
last year came before the board. We had a 7th grader and went to the South Haven School District that was interested, and they do not have wrestling in South Haven, and so was interested in being a part of our wrestling program. The board did approve that. It was, at the time, it was late in the wrestling season, and so the other team had already started, kind of got placed, and so kind of the idea at the time was for that student to wrestle JV, since so they didn't interfere with the fairness of what all had happened up to that point, but they were wanting to get that approved again for this year, and doing it early enough. Obviously, wrestling has not started yet, and so they are requesting to be a full participant in the program this year as an 8th grader. And so this actually goes amongst our district. It does not have to go through KSHA because it's not a high school activity yet, so it will become a KSHA. They'd have to get approved through KSHA next year if it became a thing, but for this year, it's still middle school wrestling. So they're just requesting being able to fully wrestle here in Wellington.
Thoughts, discussion?
I think it'd be more of a LE. Any concerns?
No, we're currently doing it with the new legislation with Keisha, with the homeschool and non-private school kids. So it's, to me, it's the same.
Okay.
So,
Wouldn't have a swimmer in Winfield if they didn't.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
yeah, exactly.
Same
Well, there was a little bit of concern last year where
Yeah.
if we ever had to like bump a Wellington varsity,
Yeah.
you know, that, so
I think the legislature took care
we
of that
just said
for
we
you. So.
handle it.
Yeah.
Yeah. that's
Explain
true.
that to me, I'm really confused what we have to do after that.
So the private school, I mean, Ellie can explain better than I can, but
I'll
the
try to.
private schools and homeschool students can participate as of the latest legislation.
Yes,
If
so-
they live here.
Yeah, they have to live within our boundary. They apply through Keisha. Keisha sends me saying, hey, so-and-so, fill out this application, they would like to, I verify that they live in town. And then that gets sent back to Keisha, and then they either approve or deny. I've not had one denied yet. And then as soon as that happens, they just become one of our athletes at that point. So then they fill out all the forms that our athletes go through, and they have to abide by all the rules and procedures that our athletes currently do. So right now, it's 4 middle school kids that have affected us. Not affected us, it's been beneficial, and no high school kids.
We don't count them for anything, they just get to do it, right?
They will get somehow counted into count day. I don't know how that works yet. I don't know if it's just the athletic side of count day or if it's the school side of count day.
What's the rest of that? And there's some more to it that the rest of it, because we were thinking we're gonna get this influx of kids. Isn't that the same thing?
It's more complicated kind of in the metro areas, because you could have essentially a kid that goes to collegiate, like let's say we have a kid who travels to collegiate, they could go play football at collegiate, come down here, play basketball, and then go back and do track at collegiate. So it gets kind of complicated in that world, but like I said, it's affecting more of the cities where they're bouncing from school to school. I'm still honestly trying to fully understand it
Yeah,
myself,
I know what you
so.
just said, but I don't get what you just said.
Yeah, sometimes I don't either. So,
Is there any reason that we would not want to, any reason we shouldn't take action tonight, it's just we don't have to deal with it later?
Like, he's from South Haven, right? So, he's not,
I don't know the student lives in South Haven, but they go to South
Okay,
Haven
so
schools for sure.
he has to redo it for the senior, when he goes into high school, right?
mhm.
But did you just say you have to, show that he lives here?
That's if he's a private or non-public school kid. This is just like our agreement with Winfield with swimming. Except when you get to the high school world, you gotta fill out a paperwork with Keisha for it. With middle school, it's just an agreement between the schools.
I'm kind of slow.
I'll make a motion to approve the wrestling cooperative between South Haven and Wellington for the middle school student.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same. Okay. FFA National Conference.
Yes, this is Chase. Amen. Get out of your way.
Alright,
Oh, no.
I know. Okay, so, you guys know me. I brought with me a couple of young ladies that are gonna go on this trip, and I'm gonna let them do the talking. For the most part.
Hi, my name is Tatum Roundtree. I'm the president of the Wellington FFA chapter. I'm joined by Kate Haynes, the vice president of the Wellington FFA chapter. And we're here to ask for your permission for our attendance at National Convention this October. This trip is offered every other year unless we make it to a national competition. However, we did not this year. This trip will span from October 30th to November 4th, and we are asking that the school help us supply some of our gas money for this trip.
While we're on the trip, we want to attend some tours outside of Indianapolis. Some of them are the Indianapolis Speedway and Exotic Feline Rescue. There's a honey farm, and then on the way up, we would like to go to the Gateway Arch in St. Louis. That most of those all come out of our pockets. We try really hard to fundraise within the community, but between sports and all of the other clubs and organizations within the high school, it gets really hard to fundraise because people want to support, but you can't buy from every fundraiser. So we're just looking for some monetary support to help us get there and have less funding come directly from our chapter.
So on here, you kind of get to see rough estimate cost, what the kids are gonna wind up paying and what the chapter pays. We have our registration, the tours that are on here, we finally got a VRBO booked. And we'll still have to get a hotel in Effingham for the drive up, because we'll drive halfway. We'll go to St. Louis, tour the Arch, get out of St. Louis, and then stay the night. So kind of that total cost is gonna be around $3,700. That's without the fuel figured in there. And then we have the student buy-in, which is each kid is going to be paying $200 to be able to go. It's $105 there because the other $95 is going to cover their cost for their rodeo ticket to go to the rodeo and to go to the concert. So that's why it's $105. So chapter basically is going to be paying $2,877, more or less. And like I said, just in previous years, since it's out of state, the board is not paid for that fuel. So that's what we're asking. I figured fuel really, really high. I mean, the Suburbans usually average over 20 miles to the gallon. Fuel probably won't be up to $4.25. So I'm, like I said, figuring at that's like $1,100, big, big. So I figured up to $1,000 or less than that, probably, on that. Also, just kind of being able to not have to carry a bunch of checks with me or things. I do have the school issue credit card that for the FFA chapter that was used here years ago, or given to me years ago. I just would like to be able to take and be able to use it to be able to pay for those tickets as we get there, and or ahead of time if we can. And I know right now I've only been able to use it for fuel and hotel now, so if we can be able to use it for that. Years ago, Mr. Hatfield can tell you, I would leave here with over $3,000 in cash and travel with students. Never made me feel very good, but that was how we had to handle it then. So that's why we changed to a credit card so that I would be able to take care of that and fuel and fuel costs and stuff like that. 2 advisors are gonna go, Mrs. Case and myself. We'll take 2 Suburbans, so we have room. It's all girls going.
How many girls, how many taken?
8.
There's 8. I didn't put that list of names on here, and I typed it out today too.
I can say who it is, I know.
She's gonna go for that.
It's us 2, Whitney Zika, Maggie Dry, Alora Hurlson, Faith Haddon, Taryn Veramontes, and Solvin Parking. So the officer team, and then, most of the officer team, and then some other girls who are just really involved within the chapter that we thought deserved to have this opportunity.
Most of them, they're all seniors, I think, with the exception of one sophomore.
Yeah.
So, it's an opportunity that may not happen again for most of those kids. The one sophomore might have another opportunity her senior year, but we wanted to kind of make sure because she's been very involved from middle school on up, and so, and she's not a current officer, so we wanted to make sure that we went ahead and included her. All the kids were given the option. So they'll miss 4 days of school, and I go through a whole, they don't know. We have a very big meeting and notary public, and they have to have all this stuff done ahead of time and all their assignments, so. But that's where we're at. What questions do you guys have for us?
Are you asking for a set amount or just to cover the fuel cost?
Just to cover the fuel, that's it. So whatever the fuel winds up costing us, so
Okay.
if it's $600, then, I don't have to pay that out of my FFA chapter.
Yep, I
Back to
got
the
you.
school district. Huh?
Nothing else.
No. I mean, I know, I'm sitting here listening to everything and I'm like, oh, wow. So, yeah, no, that's it. Because like I said, in the past, it hasn't been anything at all. So we're like, well, let's ask for fuel.
Is anyone that you're taking, will they have a hard time coming up with their part?
That was what ran us down. We started with 12. Yeah, we started with 12, it went to 8.
Gotcha.
Because those others just could not afford that $400 a kid, basically, because they're gonna pay for most of their meals. So there is one group meal that we'll eat together, and the FFA chapter will pay for that one group meal, but otherwise, everybody staying in the VRBO. We're we're hoping that that's going to save some on meals, cause we'll be able to do some breakfasts there before we get out and, and so we'll have some food with us there and some dinners and different things. The biggest challenge when we do tours, and if you kind of look at the schedule that's on the backside of this, when we start going, Indianapolis is probably, as far as for an FFA advisor, I absolutely hate National Convention there, and it's gonna be there till 2033. Because everything is so spread out. If we wanna do a tour, it's almost an hour drive out of any direction to go do a tour. So most of the time, whenever we do those tours, we're gonna be out and doing things. But it has landed us some really cool little places and some really cool little towns and some neat opportunities to do some side tours. Because we wound up in a little town, and next thing we know, we're talking to somebody and they're like, what are you doing here? And we tell them, and they're like, hey, we do this, you wanna come see it? Sure we do, we have time, let's go. So we've had some opportunities along the way to kind of learn some new things, so very cool.
Well, then I'll make a motion for you. That we allow Linda Chase, Mrs. Chase, and her students to attend the FAA National Convention with the school paying for fuel per trip.
Got a motion and a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same. There you go.
Good job, girls.
Thank you, everybody.
Public speakers, right, Mrs. Taylor? Didn't that we had public speakers?
Yes.
They did a very nice job.
Yes, so this one qualified for state last year in extemporaneous. This one was one out of going to state in
Discussion meet,
in
which is
discussion meet, and also one out of employability skills. So
always one off.
Don't give up.
no, I'm looking forward to a lot more this year.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Next thing is Patterson's Family Foundation grant.
Yes. In your packet, there was a acceptance letter. The high school CTE department has received a grant from the Patterson Family Foundation. We're excited to get that for $133,175. And the plans for that, as you know, our greenhouse got hit pretty good in a storm a while back, and so when they're rebuilding that, they're wanting to do some expansion to that, and so some of that money would come out of that grant. And then also, for quite a while now, they've needed an additional vehicle. As you know, Mrs. Chase is on the road with students all the time. And then we also have Mr. Elder, who has a residential carpentry class, and so they're always juggling. He goes out every day into the community and takes kids out and does neat projects in the community, and so that will allow them to stop shuffling vehicles constantly and each of them be freed up to have a vehicle to take out and do their programs. And so really, so just looking for discussion on that and then approval, action in the future on that grant.
Thoughts, discussion?
So they're gonna buy a vehicle plus they're given $133,000, or is that part of the?
No, that's part of the
Part of it, okay.
Yep.
I make a motion that we allow the CTE department to accept the grant.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to accept the grant. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same. All right. WHS early graduates.
Yes, this is an annual request. In the counselor's office always has a deadline for students who want to graduate at semester. Those students do stop attending school at that time, but they are still eligible for graduation and all the ceremonies in May. And so Mr. Nance is here this evening if you have any questions for him, but the list was provided to you for those students. And obviously that's assuming that they complete all their requirements. So.
Any questions or thoughts on that?
I'll make a motion to allow them to graduate early.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same. Okay. Health protocol update.
Okay, just briefly, had wanted to put together a simple document while we continue to have ESSER funds available for our use throughout the school year. They have requested that we continue to have some health protocols on the website, and so Holly, she's not here this evening, but Holly and Russ worked together to kind of put something simple together that follows current guidelines, which are fairly simple at this point, following CDC and EHE guidelines. And so that was put together just for you to review, and that would replace all the any old COVID documents that are connected on the website with something simple to make sure that we are continuing to follow that requirement, keep our students safe. That's up for discussion.
Thoughts, discussion?
I'll make a motion to go ahead and approve that to be on the website.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same. Okay. Athletic facility update.
Thank you. Okay, two things. We have, just wanted to give the board the update that with our locker room committee that has been meeting, and thank you to Brandon and Pat who have been a part of those talks. They have come up with a very general design. Jeff Porter and I met with an architect last week and passed that on to the architect, and so it is currently in the architect's hands, and they're putting together something a little bit more formal for the board and for the city council to look at. And so that will be coming your way as soon as we get that back from the architect. So I just wanted to give you that update. And then also DCS, just for general discussion, had put together kind of some ideas potentially for the future of our track and trying to take care of the needs that are out there as far as press box and concessions and restrooms. And so that was put in there for you to look at and give any opinions. Kelly's here this evening. He talks to Brett at DCS all the time to give any opinions back to Brett. Kind of the purpose is to, as you enter the lower parking lot there, is to have something nice that faces the other way, faces towards where you're coming in to make it look sharp. And then obviously we have restrooms there that need replaced, we have a concession stand we need replaced, we have press box, all of those things need to be torn down and replaced. And so just looking at one kind of solo combination building to make all that work. And then obviously we can always add bleachers as needed to either side of where we have them now. I think everybody agrees that there probably needs to be more seating as we continue on. So that's just a general design that we wanted to get feedback on and get back to DCS. Nothing formal this evening besides feedback.
I think it looks good.
When's the track surface slated to be? What's the life expectancy? How much time do we have left on
I
that?
believe it was 20-year surface replacement, and I believe that was done about 6 years ago,
Okay,
7
so
years
we
ago, something like that. So we've got some time on the actual track itself.
And this is just for the building and the restrooms, correct? That's what they're proposing right now?
Yes, and this is just ideas. This is just like the other things we're talking about, there's not specific money slated for this until we get numbers and get it back and we start talking about those things. But this gives you kind of an idea of something that's possible that might look sharp for our community.
Is that a little set of bleachers they put on the, I guess, the way side? The
Yeah, I don't
Disney
know,
side?
Kelly, I think they put that in the picture. I don't know.
They put that in the picture, but that's not something
I
that.
don't think that was planned for.
It's kind of like
We wouldn't
football
need that.
striping,
Yeah,
a football
yeah.
field in the middle of it.
Okay, it's just a discussion item.
Yeah.
Obviously. Probably ought to get a number on this.
Yeah, if you like the design itself, then we can bring back more information. We just want to get an idea before we went further with it.
Okay, any thoughts to pass on?
Of course, I can't tell what things are in the drawing, so,
If you zoom in, it's kinda,
yeah. So the coaches and the press box and visitor coaches, that's up high.
That's the upper level, yes.
Track coaches use those.
Well, they would just need a space up there at least. We could design it however we want it to.
I just mean.
Yeah, but like right now on track days, we have announcers and,
Yeah.
I don't know who all's up in there, but.
The
Coaches
announcers,
don't use it, do they?
and like probably talk to people that
Um,
issue the medals and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
It's usually the announcer and
Yeah.
the medal people.
I just did,
Coaches go up there to grab their medals, but that's it.
yeah, so you
Yeah.
wouldn't have to necessarily.
Now, I don't know what elementary, I think
They
elementary
do the
just
same
uses it
thing,
for medals as well.
Yeah, they do the same thing.
Yeah.
We could almost divide that into just 2
Yeah.
parts instead of 3.
Yeah, they kind of have it set up like a football stadium, but I
Yeah.
think it would be fine if you open that room up more.
Okay. No other comments on that?
So everybody feels pretty good about that?
I don't know if I'd say I feel really good
Yeah.
about it, but
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it's
Start.
it's a fine place to start.
it's a good place to start, yeah.
Okay.
Now we gotta figure out how much we can axe out of it and,
What it really looks like.
So next steps probably then is to have Brett come and bring some numbers to.
Well.
I think we better, honestly,
I think
we
we're
probably
that
should worry
far.
about the locker room scenario at my personal opinion, we should probably worry about the football field first. I hate to say that. Or do what we have to do with the track just to, like, I don't think we have a ticket booth there now, right?
No.
So, I mean, if we need a ticket booth, we gotta do that,
Restrooms
but,
are-
yeah.
I think we need more
Yeah.
bleachers.
Yep.
For sure. I mean,
Yeah.
we're talking about what you need right now,
Right.
there's bleachers.
I think getting a general concept, whether it's
Yeah, I think
paid
so.
for right now or not.
Right.
You know, it's more of a, if, you know, in the future, this is what the board would like when money's available.
If the school hits the lottery, this is what we're gonna do.
Something reasonable.
So what I'm hearing is maybe scale down a little bit. It's kind of what I'm hearing.
No, we really could wait till, January till we have, there'll be new people or not new people or, you know what I'm saying?
Right,
Sure, sure.
Maybe we could just kind of put it off until, you know what I'm saying?
Cause we wouldn't start construction on it at this time anyway, and it's gonna get used once or twice. A season, so. Yeah, that's a perfect idea.
But I think regardless, we're probably gonna be looking at scaling down.
Scaling down.
I mean, we have needs there. We know we have needs there. We got restroom needs there, we got bleachers needs, ticket booth needs. Maybe some of the rest of it isn't needs, maybe that's wants. That's my thinking.
So what I'm hearing is back pocket.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I literally wrote down back pocket.
Okay, any other thoughts on that?
Are we gonna work on that before we work on that football field one? I'm just,
There's
Say we might as well wait till January.
there's no plan to work on any of the
okay,
four.
yeah, let's just
see.
wait, because it's, we don't know.
Okay, we're ready to move on to the June policy update? Nice segment.
Yes. So for June policy updates, this came to you last month, and the board requested a little extra time to look at that. Also requested for the policy committee to revisit a couple of policies, which was done. And so the policy committee felt like the breathalyzer policy that connects to the language in the handbook was good as presented to you to pass on as board policy, or to pass on for discussion, I should say. And then also last month, the urine drug testing policy that's currently in place in the high school was reviewed by the committee and also felt comfortable leaving it as is as far as what was approved in the high school handbook in July. So looking for action whenever you're comfortable on both the June policy updates from KSB and also the breathalyzer policy.
So Adam, I have a question you may not know the answer to. I was looking at the disposal of district buildings part of that, and I mean, obviously that's a state thing, but it looks like it got really complicated to try to get a building we don't use back on the public tax roll.
Oh, to back on? Okay, I don't know.
Well, yeah, like if we want to get, if an individual, we sell a building to an individual like we did, it puts it on the tax roll they pay taxes on it. But it looks like the state has first dibs on that, like.
Yes, they just redid that.
So they have 180 days to decide whether they want to take ownership of a building before we can sell it. And we have to maintain that building during that time.
Why would the state want to own our buildings?
Correct, yeah.
That is ridiculous.
Yep, yes, that is correct. There was all kinds of legislation put in about closing school buildings this particular legislative session. And so if you want to close a school building, then you have to go through all these different processes now. And then also, yes, you have to inform and allow the state an opportunity to buy property first now, so. Yeah.
And it didn't look like they buy it, it looks like they just take ownership of it, if the state wants it.
Well, I took it as that they could purchase it if they chose to.
Okay.
But I could be wrong. I could be wrong with that. I'd have to reread.
Well, the policy obviously doesn't this is the KSB policy, so it
Right.
doesn't have the entire state.
Yep.
Okay, anyway, that's the only question I had.
Yes.
I really had a lot of questions, but I mean, it took forever and,
We don't necessarily, it's a discussion item, we don't have to vote on it tonight, so if you have.
Yeah, well, I won't be able to find it right now, but there was somewhere where it talked about, when you have to like restrain or put someone, that's not getting along in a separate place. Just when I read several of those, I mean, some schools and teachers have safe places, and sometimes they put their kids there, or they go there by themselves, and I don't know how much Wellington uses that, I think some people do. I was just confused about using that, like the safe space, or the way it talks in here. You know what I'm saying, anybody?
Are you talking about the seclusion and restraint?
Yeah, it's in that area.
Okay.
Where it says purposefully
Yeah, it
isolate.
says a lot of words there.
Purposefully isolate.
Is that what you're talking about, Pat?
Yeah.
That one, it's on page 7.
And it's in there in several places, but
And there's a report we have to do anytime anything like that happens that's
what
required.
I'm
to
saying,
upload it.
sometimes, I mean, it's the elementary people, you know what I'm talking about? You just have a safe space, like there's pillows or whatever, and you might take a kid and say, you need to be in a safe space for 5 minutes or something like that. That is an isolated place usually. I mean, the two I know of are isolated places, they're not away from the room, but they're. So I was just trying to balance the language in that.
Maybe some things we need to kick around before we take action on it. I mean, it's just a discussion item, so if you have questions, I mean.
Yeah, we can put it up for action next month if you want to discuss it further.
That's the whole idea, in my mind, that's the whole idea behind discussion items, is we talk about it
Yeah.
one month, we take action
Well, I'm
on
not
it
trying
next
to be
month,
picky or
so.
anything, I mean, it just, when I read it, that's what I thought of. And I
Sure.
guess people that made it know what they're talking about, but.
But if you have questions,
You
then
can always
you need to ask the people that.
read something,
Well, I think the point of the change to this policy is to, like this sentence that changed the word from enclosed, like from leaving an enclosed area to a purposeful isolation area, so that it can be more not restrictive.
We can go and vote on it, I mean, it's minor.
It's just a discussion item, so don't
I
feel
know,
pressure to vote
I
on
mean,
it.
I'm okay, I just,
Yeah.
there's things very different.
Yeah, it's whenever you're comfortable, we can bring back additional information,
I'm
it's
fine.
back in discussion because of the discussion last month essentially, so. This is the second month it's been out there.
So Deanna, didn't you have a question on the breathalyzer last meeting?
Yes, we worked
Does
through
that-
it through the policy
Does that
committee.
make it better? Does that hit what you're trying to get to, the changes there?
Yes, cause we got it to where it says, I just wanted everything to be transparent as possible.
Sure.
So now it says we have the right to test all students with a breathalyzer, and they can be tested entering dances and other district activities determined by the administration. So I just wanted to make sure that there was no confusion of where they could be breathalyzed if we were doing that. And
So I
then
guess-
then it matches up with the high school handbook where it actually says on the prom tab
Right.
that they're all subject to breathalyzer. Random, I think we put random in there.
So what is that policy as far as how are they randomized?
So-
If that's the right word.
So currently, and JJ can speak to it too, but I'm assuming it's the same thing for what's happening.
Yeah, so it's put your hand in a bucket essentially that has a black towel over it. Carla makes it look pretty, but it's got different colored mints in it, and if you get a green one, you go. If you get a red one, you go in and test.
Okay.
So and it's all that's done by law enforcement. They don't have anything to do with the breathalyzer part.
But we also put it where there's nothing about a mint system. It's because at any time it could be changed to a different system.
Right.
So
My concern
How will you
was,
do it?
my concern was all students can be. So if there's no criteria set up for can be, then it could be, we're picking people.
Yeah.
So
I wouldn't want to. Put
I
that on
appreciate you explaining that as far as what that process is.
there. Yeah, I wouldn't want to pick anybody. That's
Right.
awful.
Right.
So are you saying, Deanna, that there won't be that pick a ball thing?
no, we're saying like if Walmart runs out of mints, they might use Starburst.
Oh.
We're just
I like that idea better.
we're just not we're not nailing it
can use
down in the
mints.
handbook to
Okay.
mints. We're
Yeah, I was
saying whatever.
Yeah.
And then,
Random system.
Yeah.
and I'm not even opposed to on the breathalyzer one for the handbook, like the main handbook, all students can be randomly tested. I don't know,
Is this for events?
it says dances or any other district activity determined by the administration, so the basketball game, if they come in and they're suspicious or, we just wanna be as transparent
It would
as.
be random.
Oh, no, sorry, that's a different one, so we were talking about that too, sorry,
Yeah, that'd be
But,
probable cause.
sorry.
So you
We
can't
can't do
randomly
that.
pick somebody up.
No, we cannot randomly
Out of
breathalyze
ball game.
anybody,
Yeah.
no, but
If you have
If you have
suspicions,
suspicion,
you
that's
can.
one thing.
Yeah.
If it's a random, then it's
Then everybody
everybody.
going through it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that gets turned over to law enforcement. Administrators are not trained to give breathalyzers.
okay, and this is different than cases. Because cases, you only test people in activities.
It's not Keisha's policy, it's
That's
just our,
ours.
it's our policy,
Cases.
but, yeah.
So at school, when you test some kids,
It's our random drug policy, random drug testing policy. We do
And
it
it's-
3 times a year. We bring people, a company in, and we give them a list of kids who are, or who signed that they're doing that. So they're out for an activity or a sport. And they randomly select those and they take care of that. Yeah,
that's what bothers me,
And
that
that's the urine test, right?
yes.
that is just the people, that our policy or whatever says that. I think it should, you see what I'm saying? Why is it just people?
okay, so we have a policy in place, don't ask me, I don't know the memorization of
Yeah.
it, but in our book, it says that we can, if they're under suspicion, okay, we can randomly test them through our process for sports and what we have deemed.
That's what I have questions
Activity.
about the sport one. Or not the sport one, but the,
All students. We have it where
That's a urine
all
test.
students can be tested if under suspicion, is that?
Breathalyzer.
Yes, breathalyzer.
Okay.
But we can't urine, that has to go through law enforcement, is that correct, or whatever they choose to do?
The urine is through the company that JJ was just talking about.
yeah, that's
No,
not
but no, I'm
Oh, I'm
talking about
sorry.
all students.
Oh, the breathalyzer, yeah, would be through.
No.
I
Sorry.
know, I think it's confusing, because we have two different policies.
I think we have 3.
Yeah.
So
and-
what,
wait,
help me
wait.
understand.
No, don't me understand, help me understand first. But right now, our policy reads that you get the urine test, if you're chosen to do the urine test randomly, that the people put in the pot are people in ish activities, basically.
Yeah.
Choir, not always, but choir,
Yeah. All of
dance,
that, yeah.
all those things, football, basketball, cheerleaders, those are the people, drama, probably, I mean, I don't know, debate, that those people thrown in.
Yeah.
Those are the people that can randomly get the urine test. None of the others can get the urine test. What I'm saying, I think our policy should read, I mean,
You think any random kid should?
anybody should be put in the pot
See,
because,
now here's the thing, the reason, in my opinion, and I came into it, so I could be wrong. But the reason it's done with Keisha activities or the activities in sports is because if you opt out of it, you
can't play that
don't
sport.
participate. So you're choosing to participate knowing that policy.
is
Does
that
that make
Keisha?
sense? It's not Keisha, that's,
None of it has to do with
board.
Keisha. So if we take out the part that, if you.
you'd have to rewrite policy, right? Am I right in that?
I don't know.
Yes, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
This is my first year on the policy. I don't know.
You would have to rewrite that policy. It is currently just kids that are in activities.
And that was made by the board whenever.
Yeah, a
when it was
long time
made.
ago.
Yeah.
That's something I inherited at the high school.
Yeah.
Lots of principals. have.
2007, she
Does
said.
anybody
2007.
did you see what I'm saying, Brandon? Anybody go along with what I'm kind of saying?
Well, I think also sports are thrown in there because not that it's a liability against us, but it kind of keeps them clean because if they get caught, then they're not playing.
Yeah.
If you're not playing a sport and you get caught, what are you doing?
Well, and the other problem is that it says that you take 20% of their season. So if you don't have any season and we test you, what 20% do I take away? If we take away 20% of your driving privileges for the whole year, or I mean, what is our reason and consequence for that?
Consequence,
Yeah.
What do other schools do? They just do the same?
It's very similar to ours, yeah. I think when they did it back in 2007, when I was kind of cleaning Luke's files, he had a bunch from area schools. And I don't know if it was him or if he inherited, obviously he would have inherited it as well. But several other schools are very similar to us.
Okay, so that's what that policy is, and your policy says all students, so,
So that's the breathalyzer one, so that's very
Right.
different than this one.
so if I suspect somebody's high, I can't breathalyze them, that doesn't work.
Correct.
And I think one of the reasons we do it, or should do it, is to help those people. You know, I don't think it's to say, hey, you're gonna be punished. I think it's to hopefully maybe a deterrent and,
Yeah, drug and alcohol counseling is part of the policy,
Yeah.
but trying to get them set up.
so maybe that would be, but,
And if it's just a random student under the influence, we act on that as administration and get them, hook them up with some mental health and those things, give them those options.
okay. There's more kids that never get tested.
Well, yeah, maybe there are a lot of kids that don't get tested, but those kids are coming to school though. And I don't want them to be scared they're not coming to school because they're gonna get drug tested, you know?
I would actually make a motion to approve the 2023 June policy updates.
Got a motion?
I'll second.
Got a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same.
No,
Did you get that, Russ?
Got it.
And then, breathalyzer policy, do you want that?
Was that not part of the,
No,
thought that
separate,
was
sorry.
part of
Part of it.
Sorry.
I'll make a motion to approve the breathalyzer use policy.
I'll second.
Got a motion, no second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same.
no.
No,
Catch that? Okay.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, open enrollment policy.
Yes, this is just a reminder to the board that starting next month, we will be starting to discuss and we will bring you information on open enrollment policies. A lot of those things are being passed down to us right now from KSB and some of the other work that is going on. And so we'll be putting that together and that'll give us 3 months. That is required to be approved by the board before January 1st. And so that'll give us 3 board meetings to hash through that and make those things. So just a reminder that that is coming up next month.
Pat, I think this is kind of what you're leaning
Yeah, it
towards as far as
yeah,
potential influx, you
right.
know?
I know we're dragging on, I'll be quiet, I promise. So when this is all cleared, can I go play football in Derby and then come back here and go to school?
No.
I thought, okay, all right.
No, no, so my understanding, sorry if I'm jumping
But
out.
that's not, you said, well, go in, you still aren't, you know, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's, but if you're like an enrolled kid, that's really how you could only do that is if you become a homeschool kid or a private school kid. If you're an enrolled kid like our kids are now, then in order for you to jump back and forth, you still have to go through the transfer process, which that is still through Keisha. So they would have to fill out paperwork to transfer and all that kind of stuff, just as you do right now. The only way you're kind of jumping is if you're a part of that private school, homeschool situation.
So what is the open enrollment policy if that's not it?
So the open enrollment allows you, sorry, Adam,
There you go.
it allows you, say you live in Oxford, right?
Right.
But you don't wanna go to Oxford schools.
Right.
Not that there's anything wrong with Oxford
Yeah.
schools. It allows us to accept you on certain criteria that you guys will decide. And once we accept you, you're our student for that year. So I can live in Oxford, but go to Wellington. And then once I'm accepted, I play sports there, correct? Yes, because you're a bona fide
So if
student
I
here.
want, I could do the same thing if I want to play football in Derby.
You'd have to be accepted as a
You
special
go to-
transfer at Derby,
Okay.
if they had space.
But you still have to go through the Keisha process.
Yeah.
Not if you're in the beginning of
Or
the
you
year.
did.
Right,
That's
yeah.
what I was- okay, good point.
And Keisha has already kind of talked about that with this new legislation coming up, that could change how they do things as well.
So most of the time we accept out of district students
Yeah.
right now anyway,
Right.
unless they're a behavior problem or some issue.
I appreciate it.
This, we now have to have full policies on it. And within that, we also will rehash out some of the things that we've been talking about within our own
Yeah.
enrollment policies within the district that, so we can get all that shored up and move on so that when our new board takes over, hopefully they don't have to mess with all that stuff we've been talking about for years.
Okay. It looks like that's it on discussion items, so moving on to administrative reports.
A good year, a good start so far.
Any other administrators?
It's just exciting to start the year, see the kids coming in smiling. Last year I was kind of like a deer in headlights my first year administrative role, but man, it was exciting to see the kids coming back and just see them smiling, happy to be back at school. I think we're kind of getting all that stuff in the rear view that we've dealt with the last few years. It seems like it's getting back to normal, so just excited to see the kids again. All our staff is, we're really excited this year.
Good stuff.
It's a really good board report you guys put out, everybody.
Okay, board member comments. Pat, you wanna kick us off?
Well, I'm gonna talk about the heating and air conditioning and all that because it's, like I looked up the bill for July, which I never go through the bills, but it was quite interesting, so I might do it more often, but I'm not gonna say, but the bill in July was really high for nobody there. I'm talking about the high school. Kids are wearing coats, taking blankets, they're wearing hoodies. The volleyball game Saturday, the rec department, that's all they could talk about. And people were freezing to death in that gym. And, you know, we say we don't have any money. When he sat up there, when he talked about and said, you know, maybe if you don't raise whatever, that you will find that you're wasting money on other things that you could use. And that's certainly one thing. You know, last year in June or July, it was like $60,000 in 1 month, in June or July, one summer month, when nobody's there. And Chris has brought this up 1,000 times, it's time to deal with it. You know, we want more money for negotiations, we want more money for this, it's time to deal with it. That's one of my things I'm concerned about. Another is, I think we all need to talk about the substitute policy because it's kind of holding up something that we're working on. We have there's lots of categories now, which I learned talking about this, you know, that you can be a qualified teacher and ways to do it. We have 4 rankings of substitutes. And last year, we talked about raising just the substitute pay, and we decided that, in order to put that money in teacher negotiations, we talked about the days off. So we now have 5 sick days or whatever, universal days, so we did that instead. Currently, substitutes are paid, some are substitutes, some are teachers, some are long-term, they get paid more because they do lesson plans, and then out of the blue, people were given $31,000, can't say money. Can I say money? Okay.
It's public knowledge.
Okay, all those amounts were doled out without board approval at all. Some of the people, it says if you substitute more than 3 days, you're considered a long-term sub, so you get, these papers right in this, anyway, you get, I think, $120 if you're long-term. So if I've got the flu and I'm sick and I miss 5 days of school, my sub will get $100 a day until and on the 4th day, they'll get $120. Then there's a category where some people get $150 a day if you end up writing lesson plans, which then you get the $31,000 if you're a special education sub and you have to write IEPs, which that's what concerns me, I guess. Why would you have, special education teachers don't get paid more. They write IEPs all the time. So for a substitute that's long-term, that is writing IEPs, to get paid more than a regular sub, one, we never approved any of this, and I don't know why, because you write IEPs, you get more money. And I'm all for giving subs more money, that's not the problem at all. I just think the fairness of it. And I think that's a lengthy discussion, so that's kind of for another time, actually.
Okay.
But it's holding up kind of negotiation, it's something that's, and I think the reason the teachers are talking about it because there are so many, different kinds. And, when you earned your degree real hard and you really, you're like, I couldn't walk in and be a doctor just because there's a doctor shortage. It gets a little hard sometimes, but that's why they're talking about it, because there's just so many ways. And then the actual sub pay is a mess. And I remember this time last year, we had to approve a raise, and we decided to give a sick day, so it's something that needs board approval. So, I'll stop there. I've been through several schools, they are really cool, and it's just really, there's so many new guys at Kennedy, oh my gosh. I'm like, that's my old home, and I didn't know, I had 2 people maybe. There are lots and lots of new people, so obviously you've done a good job welcoming them. Thank you.
Alright.
I'm happy to see everybody's reading. I'd love to see that. On the FAST Bridge, do parents get notified of how their student tested? Or what tier they're in, or how that?
Conferences.
Okay, so they haven't moved kids, have they already moved the kids into their new tiers, or has that not happened yet?
Yes, they should have done that already.
But the parents won't be notified for another month?
No, at conference, some may do that, but at conferences, we definitely do that. So we make sure that parents understand what MTSS is and how it works and how we do that, so that they can have a face-to-face conference about it.
I was wondering if we could, see the scores, to see where they are after that, I feel like next year there was sticky over thing, just call it, you don't have to do it. If we could see that
where we're
sometime,
starting out.
the first.
Or did that answer your question?
Well, I just don't understand why the students, we knew they were gonna be tested, but we were told that we are gonna have this amazing program where parents could get in and see what's going on with their student. And I don't see any of that, so I'm just trying to, accountability here, we say we're doing things, but I'm not seeing it. My son had MTSS for 3 or 4 days being tested, and I don't know what tier he's in. I don't know where my kid is. I should know. Every parent in this district should know within the day those kids are moved into their groups where their student is. I mean, if you have a tier 3 kid and you don't know it, you're not even knowing how to help them at home. How can I be a teacher and a parent, and help you guys if I don't know where my kid's sitting? It's communication on, but you want us to do it, we have to know what you need from us. You're gonna have to communicate with us.
Can
I don't-
any principals speak to how you handle MTSS movement and?
As far as the
teachers?
beginning of the year, the only thing that we do that would be separately from conferences is if we have kids that are on a GEI, then we'll talk about the tier placement and that, but I mean typically it's conferences when we have those discussions. We just got our group, MTSS groups put together, they just started this week, so.
I mean, is there a way you could send something home? I mean, we get folders every night.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we could definitely.
I mean, I do have to say,
Send
like,
something.
my son's in 4th grade and we got his reading, and they said, oh, he's reading this per minute, now he's reading this, let's keep an eye on it, and we did get that, but is there a way I don't know how hard it would be.
Communication on that. Okay. Chris, do you guys send up home anything on that, on MTSS movement?
Just like Joel.
Okay.
I mean, we can do it, it's easy.
That's something we can work on.
That's an expectation. If that's an expectation, we can sure carry through with that.
Well, it just helps us help you,
Yeah, sure.
because we know our kids are struggling a little bit, we know what we have to do.
Cause when my kid comes home, I'm like, what are you doing, Nothing. I mean, I don't get any communication, so any communication I can get to help you guys is gonna help everyone.
Appreciate that.
Anything else? Yeah, I just echo the comment about the reports that you guys put out. They look really good. I really appreciate you guys taking the time and doing that, so keep up the good work.
I don't have anything. I'm glad my kids are back at school.
Get
Get bug lust during the day.
Chris?
The only thing I have is on the radio. It's good to hear the Crusaders on the radio, and the kids are doing a fantastic job. I listened to the Andale game. I don't think they were set up in a good place. They even made a comment. It was very loud, and it was hard for them. But I mean, I'm enjoying listening to them on the radio and Channel 5. So you guys, that was a good call. You guys are doing good on that, definitely.
Okay. That's it. It looks like the next item is an executive session.
I make a motion that we go into executive session to discuss negotiations, to include Adam, Jim, Darcy, for 45 minutes. The regular meeting will resume at, let's say, 8:27 p.m.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same.
Sure.
Every
Session for 10 minutes to discuss negotiation to include Adam, Jen, and Darcy. The regular, I say 10 minutes, the regular meeting will resume at 8:39 p.m.
Motion
You have to
second.
leave.
A second.
All those in favor
The
say,
cameras and stuff.
Yeah.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Yeah, I feel better with.
Yeah, the fee plus the stuff's in there anyway.
But we're on a Milky Way in here.
Oh, there's plenty. I appreciate that. But I want more.
Oh, okay.
Let me go out to my tree, my gold tree here.
What about home?
On the unelected personnel.
We have no minutes or.
Dollar bills is gonna happen here.
Back?
Yes.
Okay, we're back in open session, no action was taken. And
I would make a motion that we go to executive session to discuss non-elected personnel for 10 minutes to include Adam and Misty.
got a motion
I guess I
and a second, all in favor say aye.
What time's the
Oh,
meeting?
meeting to resume at 8:51.
Oops, sorry.
I don't know, did we actually vote on that?
What?
Did we actually vote on that? Oh.
Did the NEA contact you 2 years ago for this?
No.
We got off lucky, didn't we?
Because I was like 4 years ago, I'm like, I wouldn't have been invited
No,
to anything
no,
for
right.
it.
I'm gonna come watch too.
Awesome.
Hey, if
We'll be there to support you. We'll be there to support you.
we're back.
Okay, we are back in open session, no action was
I
taken,
can do that for you, just remind me.
and moving on to the consent agenda.
Okay, consent agenda, approve the minutes of the August 14th and August 28th meetings. Approve payroll and bills. Payroll, $290,380.89. Bills, $710,046.36. Personnel, approve new hires. Juanita Avalos, title aide, Lincoln. Julie Arabello, para, middle school. Kerrigan Beard, para, high school. Terrence Nichols, para, Washington. Amy Gum, assistant volleyball coach, freshman at the high school. Sierra Rodemaker, assistant volleyball coach, 8th grade, middle school. Ariel Peeler, para at the high school. Riley Clark, functional sped para at Lincoln. Shannon Saltkill, para at the high school. Amanda Chapman, speech and functional para at Lincoln. Xander Walker, night custodian at the middle school. Kayla Fleetwood, para at Kennedy. Zachary Reed, assistant basketball coach at the high school. And Matthew Lira, para at the middle school. Approved resignations. Jessica Beebe, para, Kennedy. Rebecca Emerson, para, middle school. Lorena Waldorf, para, Eisenhower. Sarah Schumann, speech para, Eisenhower. Maddie Storts Roberts, para, Eisenhower. Brooklyn Burden, para, Eisenhower. Julie Thrush, para at the high school. And Haley Bursack, para at the high school.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second on the consent agenda, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same. And if there's nothing else for the board, we are adjourned.
I was gonna let him dish out